Shalom. First thing and foremost, I'm going to give all praises and glory and honor is due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well. Blessings and salutations to the whole elect. Those in the gospel of God, lifting up the standard of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, wherever it may be. This is a quick lesson through the Spirit. A sister had asked me a question about the laws of divorce and about being put away from your husband. And if you can remarry, which in the world they teach you once you break up with a person, go find you somebody else and continue to find that one until it works out, right? Well, that's confusion. And the scriptures tells us that Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai is not the author of confusion. Okay? So with that being said, if you in the faith, because we understand that even though the law, statutes, and commandments and the rules that the Heavenly Father applied to all Israelites, we understand that the Lord is only focusing on the remnant, the elect at this time, because the 2/3, they're not going to adhere to the words of the Heavenly Father. So, in fact, you break up with your girl or with your wife, or she leaves the husband and she goes out and get another man, that's adultery. I mean, just point blank period. That's adultery. Whether you agree with the statement or not, that's adultery, okay? And this is why the world will be judged by Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. But for you sisters that believe in this thing, you have to walk according to the scriptures to the best of your ability. And if you go to Corinthians, the 7th chapter, there's well, that's advice on how to handle these said situations about the divorced wife or the divorced husband, on how they shouldn't remarry or how they shouldn't, well, not the husband, but the woman. The woman gets put away from her husband or she leaves, then she can't remarry. And a lot of you sisters, that's a well-known fact, and you should know these things because, let's just say if your husband puts you away, you go deal with another brother, or you crushing on another brother, well, you're committing adultery and you're going to cause that man to commit adultery. And that's a big no-no. Okay, because when you go into the book of Deuteronomy, the 24th chapter, first verse, the laws on divorce, the laws on marriage, it tells us that if you put away your wife, then she becomes another. But Yahweh Shai say that you shouldn't put away your wife except for the form of adultery. But also in the Apocrypha, it tells us that if she don't go the way that you would have us, then give her a bill of divorce and, let her go. End the discussion, right? So let's read the laws on divorce, Deuteronomy 24th chapter. And it says, and when a man have taken a wife and married her, and it come to pass that she finds no favor in his eyes, because he have found some uncleanness in her, and that can be particular ways, it can be attitude, hell, even in adultery, you will get put to death. But uncleanness can go into many things. It can be her attitude, it can be her hygiene, it can be the way she look. It can be he's just not pleased to deal with her for whatever the reason may be. It says, and he have found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand and send her out of his house. And when she is departed out of his house, she may go and be another man's wife. But remember, when they brought this up to Yahweh Shai, he said that Moses said that because Jake hardened their hearts and because they was going to do it anyway. Because let's just say if you had a wife, right, and she looked somewhat decent in shape, but yet she was just a total demon, but you still had feelings for this woman, but you couldn't deal with her. You put her away, even if she was not to deal with other men, she'll still go out there and get popped by other men because Jake is that wicked. Okay, it tells us in Jeremiah the 3rd chapter, 1st verse, that basically if you're dealing in a case of an adultery situation, then you give her a bill of divorce and be done with it, right? But it says here, and when she is departed out of his house, she may go and be another man's wife. And if the latter husband hate her and write her a bill of divorce and give it in her hand and send her out of his house, or if the latter husband die, which took hers to be his wife, her former husband, which sent her away, may not take her again to be his wife, and after that she is defiled. For that is an abomination before Yahweh, and thou should not cause the land to sin, which the Lord thy power giveth thee for an inheritance, man. Okay? So a lot of times, women in the truth, they adhere to this law because this gives them the license to go out and deal with other men. But matter of fact, let's look at what Yahweh Shai said. Bill And let's get some understanding on it. Hold up. Yep. Mark 10:2. Matter of fact. All right, let's go to Matthew 19:3. It says, and the Pharisees came unto him, tempting him, and saying unto him, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? And he answered and said unto them, have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? And said, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and should cleave to his wife, and they twain should be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore the Most High have joined together, let no man put asunder. So, nobody has the right to come in between the man and his wife, okay? Not these courts, not anybody, right? But it says, then they said it to him, then why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and put her away? And he said unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your heart, suffered you to put away your wives. But from the beginning, it was not so. Okay, so that was the point. It wasn't a common thing, but Jake was wicked. So he said here, and I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except to be for fornication, and shall marry another, committed adultery. And whoso married, it says, and whosoever married her, which is put away, doth commit adultery. Okay, so that's the point. If she remarries, then she commits adultery. If you marry her, then you commit adultery. This is why we tell sisters out there that if you are dealing with a man, whether it's in the truth or not in the truth, and y'all break up, it's best to remain separate, because ultimately you don't want to bring that blot upon a brother, and you don't want to bring that blot upon yourself, because, you got some decent looking sisters in this thing that may have got put away by their husbands because of whatever reason, but then you ask the fact as to why he put you away, and being real with yourselves and taking accountability. If you were being a demon, then do you really want to be another brother's headache or another brother's burden if that was the case or if that was lawful? So, you have to look between the lines and ask yourself, are you really marriageable in this point? Because, you may have a nigga in the world that's wicked as hell and he may not be doing right. But at the same time, you know what I'm saying? You got women in the truth that still live like women of the world. You see, and that becomes a conflict in the ventures, because then it's like, okay, aren't you supposed to be a Israelite? Aren't you supposed to be in the faith? Ain't you supposed to believe in Yahweh Shem Shai? So we supposed to walk in likewise, in like manner, So let's go from here to the book of Corinthians 7, and then we'll end it. Lord's will have been edifying. All right, but to answer the question, if you get put away from your husband, or whether you leave, and especially if you're an Israelite, can you remarry? No, you can't remarry until that man is dead. Okay, and that's even if that's the man that took your virginity. Okay, but even then, if you claim that man to be a husband and he's the father of your kids, then no, technically you cannot remarry. You just have to remain single and wait till the Lord send you a husband, or you have to wait for that guy to be put to death, or however the Lord does it. I don't know, until you're free from the law of your husband. But until you're free from that law, then you can't really remarry. Well, you can't remarry. It's no really. Now, this is the book of 1 Corinthians 1:7. 7:1, Salakia. It says, now concerning the things whereof ye wrote unto me, is it good for a man not to touch a woman? Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, which is adultery, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Okay. It says here, let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise the wife also unto the husband, and that's affection, love, sex, whatever you want to call it, spending time. But it says the wife have not power over her own body, but the husband, and likewise also the husband have not power over his own body, but the wife. So, in some cases, she may be like, she may be hot up for the goods, and she may get on top of you. Then, hey, you do what you got to do, But then, it's a case-by-case scenario. You may not be up to having sex that night. But even then, you still have to take into consideration, all right, I ain't popped my wife in 2 weeks. Let me go ahead and give her due benevolence before she starts to look elsewhere. And it reads, it says, but defraud ye not one another, except to be content for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you, not for your inconsistency, all right? So, you may have to go into prayer. You may have to fast. You might ask the Lord to reveal some things to you through the Spirit, But it says here, but I speak this by permission and not of commandment, But it says, for I would that all men were even as I myself, but every man have his proper gift of the Most High, one after his manner, and another after that. And I say, therefore, to the unmarried and widow, it is good for them that abide even as I. But if they cannot contain, let them marry, which is sex, for it is better to marry than to burn. And unto the married I command, yet not but I, but the Lord, let not the wife depart from her husband. So in most cases, you don't want to depart unless it's just unbearable. But it says, but if she depart, let her remain unmarried, okay? And this is what you sisters have to understand. Let her remain unmarried or be reconciled to her husband, and let not the husband put away his wife. So if y'all have some type of separation and it's to the point that y'all can work it out, then it's best to work it out. See, a lot of people, man, they want that. I want my cake and eat it too. Or, you know, some sisters, they may crush on certain brothers because of a certain look. So they're looking for ways out of their marriage. But there's no way out of it unless unless he dies, unless the Lord destroys him. And even then, let's just say if the Lord kills him or takes him out of the picture, you have to look at the baggage that you may carry as far as entering another man's life, especially if you have kids by this man. Okay, because from what I know, a lot of men of the Lord, they're not going to take on other men's kids, you know, if it's in great number. Maybe one, you know, but 4, 5, 6, 7 kids, it's unlikely that a man will really want to take on that responsibility, you know. So in this type of advice, you know, it's probably best to just remain unmarried and, you know, wait till Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai to bring the kingdom, and then, you know, be fruitful and multiply. Shit, you know, and those are just suggestions. All right, it's not law, but we're just, you know, telling sisters out there that may be in a situation such as this, it's probably best to just work on yourself and stand in faith, watch the videos, and stay prayed up, and, you know, wait for this thing to fall, you know, and let the Lord make his move. But it reads, it says, but I speak, or but to the rest speak I, not the Lord. If any brother have a wife that believeth not, she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away. So you can deal with the unbelieving woman. It says, and a woman which have a husband that believeth not, if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. So if he wants to be with you, you know what I'm saying, and is workable, then y'all go ahead and do what y'all got to do, man. All right? Don't let the flesh or the lust of your spirit deter you away because you see a brother that looks better than the husband you got. Nah. Okay, that's adultery. But it says here, for the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the wife. No, unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Else were your children unclean, but now they are holy. But if the unbelieving depart, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases, but the Most High have called us all to peace. Okay, so basically, long story short, in that regard, bondage meaning that it's not like obligated to be in that situation, but at the same time, you still don't want to marry. Okay, you want to remain single if all be possible, you know. So reading that in the New Living Testament, it reads, it says, but if the husband or wife isn't a believer and insists on leaving, let them go. It says, in such cases, the Christian husband or wife is no longer bound to the other, but the Most High have called to you to live in peace. You know, so Lord's will that was edified, giving all praises and glory and honor that is due to Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shai, Bashim Rakakwadash. Lord's will you were edified. To the next lesson. Shalom.